The morning air was cool and thin, heavy with the scent of wet grass and fresh asphalt. The sun had barely begun to rise over Sunset Ridge, a quiet suburban neighborhood where houses all looked the same: trimmed lawns, painted mailboxes, and neighbors who liked to know who belonged where. Marcus Barnes adjusted his smartwatch and stepped onto the street, stretching his legs before his usual 6-mile run. He wore his standard gear: a red running jacket, black shorts, and a reflective vest. Music hummed softly in his ears as his shoes struck the pavement in steady rhythm. This was his ritual: early, peaceful, his way to clear his mind before another long shift at the firehouse. He'd been a firefighter for 15 years, and though the job had scarred him in ways the uniform didn't show, running was where he found control again. It was freedom, until the world reminded him it wasn't always his to claim. Across the street, Angela Whitmore sat on her porch, a mug of steaming coffee in one hand and her phone in the other. Her house looked immaculate: potted flowers on the steps, the kind of perfection that said she cared deeply about appearances. She noticed Marcus immediately. She always did. A tall black man running alone through her neighborhood at dawn. She told herself she was just being cautious, but fear had a strange way of dressing up as concern. Her eyes narrowed as Marcus paused for a second, checking something on his phone. To her, that movement looked suspicious. "Why would someone be stopping there?" she whispered. "Is he casing houses?" She hesitated, fingers hovering over her screen. Then, without much more thought, she dialed. 911, what's your emergency? "Yes, hi," she said quickly, lowering her voice as if doing something noble. "There's a man running through our neighborhood. I don't recognize him. He's dressed in dark clothes and he keeps stopping near houses. It doesn't seem right." The dispatcher asked for a description. Angela gave one, eyes never leaving Marcus as he jogged away down the street, unaware. Minutes later, a police cruiser turned onto the block. Marcus didn't notice it at first. His playlist was in the middle of a favorite track: old school soul, something his father used to play. But when flashing blue lights washed over the road, he slowed, confusion crossing his face. "Sir," the officer called, stepping out. "Can I talk to you for a second?" Marcus pulled out his earbuds, breathing steady but guarded. "Morning, officer. Something wrong?" "Got a call about a suspicious person jogging in the area." Marcus blinked. "Suspicious person? You mean me?" The officer's tone softened when he noticed the reflective vest, the ID tag on Marcus's keychain. Mind showing me some identification?" Marcus reached slowly into his pocket, calm and deliberate, and handed over his driver's license. Next to it, clipped to his wallet, was a metal badge. The officer took one look and exhaled. "Fire department?" "Yeah," Marcus said evenly. "Lieutenant, Station 7. The officer's face changed, embarrassment replacing suspicion. "I'm sorry about that, sir. Just responding to a call. You have a good morning." Marcus nodded. "You too, officer." As the cruiser rolled away, he stood for a long moment on the curb, the music still faintly playing through one dangling earbud. He didn't feel angry, just tired. Tired of explaining his existence to people who never asked for it, only questioned it. Across the street, Angela watched from behind her curtains, the coffee in her cup long gone cold. She saw the officer drive off, saw Marcus jog away back straight, shoulders squared. Something inside her twisted, an uneasy blend of guilt and disbelief. Later that week, the neighborhood newsletter landed in every mailbox. Angela skimmed it absent-mindedly until a headline caught her eye. "City appoints new fire captain Marcus Barnes to lead Station 7. Her hands froze. The photo showed him in uniform, smiling proudly in front of a red engine. The same man she'd called the police on. For a long time, Angela just sat there on her porch, the paper trembling slightly in her hand. The shame settled heavy and slow, like the morning fog returning after sunrise. She whispered to herself, "God, what have I done?" Meanwhile, across town, Marcus stood in front of his new crew, the youngest fire captain in the district. He looked out over his team, calm and resolute. Outside, the station flag fluttered in the wind. He didn't know, and maybe didn't care, that somewhere back in Sunset Ridge, a neighbor who once doubted him was now learning a hard truth about who he really was. For Marcus, the road ahead was clear. He'd earned his title, his respect, his peace. He laced up his running shoes the next morning, stepped out into the quiet dawn, and ran again. not away from anything, but toward everything he'd become. The weeks rolled by, but Angela Whitmore couldn't shake the memory of that morning. The flashing lights, the quick calls she made, and the man she'd accused with nothing but her own fear to justify it. Every time she passed the street where it happened, guilt settled in her chest, like a weight she couldn't put down. She told no one, not her husband, not her book club, not even her pastor. But every time she saw a fire truck rush past the neighborhood, red lights cutting through the air, siren wailing, she wondered if it was him. One evening, the neighborhood Facebook group announced a community safety night hosted at the local recreation center. The flyer said, "Come meet your new fire captain, Captain Marcus Barnes of Station 7. Angela's stomach dropped when she read it. Her first thought was to skip it. Her second was to delete the email and pretend it didn't exist. But something inside her, something quieter and braver, said she needed to face it. The night of the event, she stood in front of her mirror for too long, debating whether to go. She changed her blouse twice, then grabbed her purse and keys before she could talk herself out of it. The recreation hall buzzed with chatter when she arrived. Rows of folding chairs filled the space, families and neighbors chatting over paper cups of lemonade. A banner hung across the wall, "Building Trust, Building Safety." At the front of the room stood Marcus Barnes. He looked sharp in his uniform. Navy blue pressed clean, badge shining under the fluorescent lights. He was talking with an older man and laughing quietly, easy and at peace, his confidence effortless. Angela froze near the doorway, unsure if she belonged here at all. When the meeting began, Marcus stepped to the microphone, his voice carrying easily through the room. "Good evening, everyone," he said. "It's an honor to serve this community. My team and I aren't just here to fight fires. We're here to keep you safe, to earn your trust, and to remind folks that the fire department is part of this neighborhood, not apart from it." Applause filled the room. He continued, sharing tips about emergency preparedness, fire escape plans, and safety protocols. His tone was calm but commanding, the kind of authority that didn't need to shout to be respected. Angela listened, her throat tight. Every word he spoke made her shame ache a little more. When the event ended, people lined up to shake his hand. Kids took pictures beside the fire engine parked outside. Angela waited until the crowd thinned. Her palms were damp, her heart racing. Finally, she approached. "Captain Barnes?" she said softly. He turned, polite and professional. "Yes, ma'am." Up close, his eyes were kind but sharp, the kind of eyes that remembered. She hesitated. "My name's Angela Whitmore. I live on Sunset Ridge." He studied her face for a moment, then nodded slowly. "I remember that street." Her breath caught. "You should. I was the one who called the police that morning." For a second, the air seemed to stop moving. Marcus's expression didn't harden, but something behind his calm eyes flickered. Recognition, then restraint. Angela's voice trembled. "I thought I was helping. I told myself it was about safety, but it wasn't. It was fear. And I'm so sorry. I judged you for no reason. I can't take it back, but I needed to tell you." Marcus was silent for a moment, his jaw tightening, then easing. He looked around. The room was nearly empty now, the sound of children laughing faintly outside. He met her eyes again. "You know," he said quietly, "that morning could have gone differently. I've seen what happens when it does." Angela swallowed hard. "I know. But I appreciate you saying this," he continued. "Most people don't. They just pretend it never happened." Tears filled her eyes. "You didn't deserve that. Nobody does." Marcus nodded slowly. "We can't change what people see when they look at us, but we can change what they learn after they do." She nodded, wiping at her eyes. "You did. You really did." He gave a small, tired smile, not of forgiveness exactly, but of understanding. "Maybe that's why I keep running," he said. "Not to get away from anything, but to stay ahead of it." Angela let out a shaky breath, half a laugh, half a sob. "I don't know how to thank you." "You just did," Marcus said simply. "Now go make sure the next person you see running gets a wave, not a call." Her face broke into a small, humble smile. "You have my word." They shook hands, hers trembling, his steady and warm. As Angela walked out into the cool night air, she saw the fire engine outside, its red lights reflecting against the street like a heartbeat. Marcus stood nearby, talking to a young boy in a plastic fire hat, patient and smiling. She watched him for a long moment, realizing she wasn't just seeing a firefighter or a man she once feared. She was seeing what she'd failed to before, a human being, one who had every reason to turn bitter, but chose grace instead. And for the first time in a long time, Angela felt something new in her chest. Not guilt, but hope. It was just after midnight when Captain Marcus Barnes's radio came alive. The voice on the line was urgent, tense, breaking through static. Fire reported on Sunset Ridge Drive. Residential structure. Possible entrapment. Units respond. Marcus froze for only a second. Sunset Ridge. His neighborhood. He was already moving before the dispatcher finished speaking, pulling on his turnout coat, helmet, gloves. "Engine 7, roll!" he barked, his team snapping into motion. The fire truck roared to life, red lights spilling over the empty streets like blood. As they turned onto Sunset Ridge, smoke was already rising into the dark sky, orange flickers reflecting off the neat rows of houses. A two-story home was burning, flames licking the siding, the roof trembling with heat. Neighbors stood in their pajamas on the sidewalk, terrified, helpless. And among them, he saw her, Angela Whitmore. She was screaming into her phone, hair loose, face pale. "My neighbor's still inside. She's older, second floor, can't move fast." Marcus leapt off the truck, barking orders. "Hose line to the east side, ladder up front, let's move." He pulled his mask down, the heat already pressing against his skin, and ran straight into the burning house. The world inside was chaos. Roaring flames, cracking wood, smoke thick as oil. He could barely see, but his instincts took over. "Fire department!" he shouted through the mask. "Call out if you can hear me!" A faint voice answered from upstairs. Marcus charged toward it, his boots pounding against the weakening floorboards. He reached the bedroom, an elderly woman trapped beneath a fallen beam. Her eyes widened in terror as she coughed. "Hold on," he said, gripping the beam. It was heavy, but he'd carried heavier things. Guilt, judgment, expectation. This was just wood. He heaved once, twice, and the beam shifted enough for him to pull her free. He wrapped her in a blanket, lifted her into his arms, and pushed through the heat, his lungs burning with every breath. When he burst through the door into the cold night air, the crowd erupted in gasps and shouts. The woman was coughing but alive. EMTs rushed forward to take her, and Marcus ripped off his mask, sweat and soot streaking his face. Angela was standing right there. Her hands were trembling as she pressed them over her mouth, eyes wide with disbelief. The same man she once called the police on, running into a burning house without hesitation, saving a life from the flames. He caught her stare for half a second, and this time, she was the one who looked away first. The next day, the photo was everywhere. A picture snapped by a neighbor's phone, Marcus carrying the woman out of the fire, smoke swirling behind him, the night lit orange and red. The caption read, "Fire Captain Saves Resident in Late Night Blaze." The city hailed him a hero. The department issued a statement. Reporters came by the station for interviews. But Marcus didn't linger on the attention. He'd seen enough loss to know that heroism was just doing what needed to be done. At the grocery store, people stopped him to shake his hand. At the coffee shop, strangers bought his drink. And in the same neighborhood that once eyed him with suspicion, people now smiled and waved when he jogged by in the morning. But the moment that mattered most came a week later. At a city council meeting, they held a short ceremony to honor his bravery. The mayor spoke, the fire chief spoke, and then, unexpectedly, the moderator announced that a local resident had requested to say a few words. Angela stood up. Her voice trembled at first, but she steadied it. "A few months ago, I made a mistake," she said, "a terrible one. I judged a man not by what he did, but by how he looked. I thought I was protecting my neighborhood. Instead, I was betraying what community is supposed to mean." The room was silent. Marcus sat in the front row, his face unreadable. Angela continued. "That same man, Captain Barnes, saved a life on my street last week. He didn't hesitate. He didn't ask who it was. He just ran in. And that's when I realized I didn't just misjudge a man. I misjudged what goodness looks like. She turned toward Marcus. I can never undo what I did. But I can say this. I will never be silent again when I hear someone else speak or act out of fear. Because courage doesn't come from calling the police. It comes from facing the truth. The crowd broke into applause. Not thunderous, but sincere. Marcus nodded once, meeting her gaze. No resentment, no triumph, just quiet understanding. When the ceremony ended, Angela approached him, eyes red but smiling faintly. You probably didn't need my speech, she said softly. Maybe not, Marcus replied, but someone else did. She laughed, a small, unsteady laugh. You keep teaching people lessons without even trying. He shrugged lightly. Fire tends to reveal what's underneath. Sometimes that's truth. Angela smiled, genuine this time, full of something new. You changed this neighborhood, Captain. He shook his head. No, he said simply. It just finally started seeing. That night, Marcus jogged again through Sunset Ridge. The same quiet street, the same steady rhythm of his steps. But now, porch lights flicked on as he passed. People waved. And on one porch, Angela stood with a mug of coffee, not hiding behind the curtains this time. When she saw him, she smiled and lifted her hand in a wave. Marcus nodded back, his breath even, his stride strong. The same road, the same man, but a neighborhood and a world just a little more awake.